On this episode of Who Dem.
When I was a kid, I actually saw my father get arrested. In front of me, I saw 4 police officers. This isn't something that I talk about a lot. I saw 4 police officers arrest him. I was probably like 5 or 6 years old. Tackle him to the ground. I remember, my mom advocating for my dad. I remember watching this woman see the love of her life get taken away from her.
Now that we're rolling, would love to start just talking about your thoughts on Saturday. Obviously, you were at the Fight the Oligarchy and the Oligarchy rally hosted by AOC and Bernie Sanders, and you decided to attend. Would love to hear your thoughts on the event.
Yeah, no, I went out there. We got an invitation late on Friday, so it really wasn't the most accommodating thing, but somehow we figured it out and we made the time and went out to the rally. But it was great to see. I mean, there was 30,000. I think they were kind of putting the estimate at like about over 35,000 people that were out there. Huge crowd. And again, I think I've said it before, and I'll say it again. This movement has got to start with the people. The people have to kind of rise up, and the people are the ones that need to speak out. They're the ones that are going to take notice. That's who, the Trump administration and everything, they're going to take notice of people kind of rallying out there and speaking out. That's what they're going to notice, more so than anything I ever say. And so it was great to see all those people out there. We were out there together, standing up against Trump and Musk and all the inefficiency that Doge is creating. So it was. I can't honestly say I think I've ever been part of anything that big, a rally where people were kind of united out there for a single purpose. Other than enjoy a rock concert or something, right? Or some music.
There you go. Yeah. Well, I'll be a bit of a bootlicker to my co-host for a minute here and say that's kind of awesome that I think in DC there's kind of a sort of respect and professional culture where, let's say you have an event where it's like, oh, you get the last minute invitation or something like that, and it's seen as maybe a bit of disrespect or unprofessional, and affects your decision making in regards to an attended event or align with someone, right? But you did still go, and that matters to people. That matters to people in your district, yeah. I would imagine.
Yeah. So. I think we got some good feedback on some of the videos and stuff that we posted. People were happy to see that I went. Did we have to move some things around? Yes. Did we have to kind of, reschedule a couple things? Yes. Was I late to something that I wanted to get to later on in the day? Yes. But, we made it work. And so I was glad we were able to make it work. And it was great to be part of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the thing that I'll ask you, I have 2 more questions on this, then we can kind of talk about whatever. But why go if you yourself aren't fully aligned or even mostly aligned? I don't know how you describe that with people in the Democratic Party like Bernie Sanders and AOC, especially when the rally is aligned to fight the oligarchy. So I guess I'm curious, why go? And then what does the term fight the oligarchy mean to you?
Well, look, I think it is about, the event was about people coming out and people speaking up to fight Trump and everything that they're doing, how they're going anti-union and how, I think the wealthy or the super ultra wealthy, the billionaires have kind of really embedded themselves in this administration and everything that's going on. And I don't know if they're doing it out of fear. When you look at like the LA Times and the Washington Post, which are the 2 newspapers that I pay the most attention to because I work in DC and I live in the LA area, they're both run by billionaires now. And they have both come out and said, right, that they are, not in so many words, but they basically said that we are going to hold back on what we're reporting, right? And tried to kind of put some kind of fancy language on there and not really let their journalists do their job. Both of those newspapers were going to support Kamala Harris for president, and were told by both their owners not to do that. And so to me, that's what I see as like fighting the oligarchy, right? That we
Right.
need to stand up to these super ultra billionaires and stand up to Donald Trump and stand up to Elon Musk, who's part of that group as well, to kind of say that, no, you're not going to take control of this country. No, you are not going to have the last word or the say on how things are going to do, that the American people are still, they're the ones still in control. And we are the ones that are going to speak up. And that's who the Constitution is there to serve. It's there to serve the American people, not the ultra wealthy.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I'm most curious about is you were there to support you were there to align with, the movement and the event itself. But while you were there, you also talked to people who were attending the event, people who cared. So what did you hear from the people who were attending the event, and what are they worried about going forward?
Look, the people that were there, right? They were there for the specific reason. They want to fight the oligarchy. They don't like what's seen going on in this administration. They don't like that, Trump is firing thousands of people through Doge, creating inefficiency, not doing, I think they said they were going to be able to find like $1.5 to $2 trillion. And now their latest report is like, well, maybe we'll be able to find $150,000 that we can cut. I'm sorry, $150 billion that they can cut. They're going after unions. They went after, the Italian unions. They're going to renegotiate their contract. They have contracts with the governments. They're going after education, which is, there were a lot of teachers there. The UTLA was there. Other teachers unions were there too as well. That's what was out there, right? And that's why people were kind of, everything that they see that is going wrong right now, the self-destruction of the economy, the tariffs that are creating and making things more expensive, the fact that he's going after unions, the fact that he is not doing things to help support the American people, the fact that he is going after a sovereign nation like Ukraine and blaming them for starting the war because they wouldn't bow down to Putin. These are things that the people don't like, and this is what they were standing up against, and that's why they were there. And I felt it was, one of the reasons we did go out there and kind of move things around was because I had this feeling that it was important to go down there and kind of be part of that and see what people were saying and talk to them and get them on camera. And it was good to see a bunch of my colleagues that were there as well.
At the end of the day, to me, an event like this is about one trend in the past 30 years or so of American history that has stayed pretty constant. And there's a few statistics and information that is a part of this. One is American worker productivity has continued to increase drastically, on pace since the mid-70s, early 80s. But the real wage for American workers has not increased in the same way that the productivity of American workers has. During this same time, the share of wealth that the top 1% of Americans have has continued to increase, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, in terms of the Americans that are able to own stocks versus not. That's been a big contributing factor. And, regarding just, quality of life and the ability that corporations and people who have money have on our elections, right? We've continued to favor those that are able to get the interest right. The Citizens United decision, we've talked about that on the podcast before, is a big piece of that. We had a global financial crisis in the mid-late 2000s where, at the end of the day, the people that caused it mostly just saw bailouts, and a lot of them, some went to jail, but not a lot, right? And these are all symptoms of, I think, a broader problem in America that is upsetting people who maybe a lot of them are young people, but I think a lot of them are just regular Americans, some of whom probably voted for Trump. Maybe even a lot of them voted for Trump, right? Because people are unhappy. And I think whether or not you agree or disagree with every single policy point that Bernie Sanders and AOC stand for, I think a lot of us, me and you, can understand that there's a broader trend that's making people unhappy that maybe Democrats haven't been able to fully address in the past few election cycles. And, you know, it's important that we all come together for events like this and address that. And I've seen it on specific issues. When I grew up in high school, we had, deportation rallies for Trump when he was separating families. Then we had the Parkland High School shooting and all school shootings throughout high school. That was the beginning of my political involvement. But nothing ever before that's really okay, this whole system the whole thing is making us upset. Let's change our approach to how we criticize it. I don't know what your thoughts are on that and sort of this feeling in America and people who are anti-Trump right now, but it's something that I've noticed since the election in November.
I don't even know where your question was there, Max.
I don't think there's a question, but it's just kind of a train of thoughts that
I don't agree with everything that Bernie Sanders says or what he stands for. I didn't support him when he ran for president in 16 or in 20. But to me, attending the rally was about standing up not for, but against the individual who's in the White House now and the destruction that he is causing to our country and his I don't know what you would say the right word is, right? But his ideas, which are just out there and have no possibility of setting this country right or making it even better. The economy was good. The economy was good. It was on a good path. All he had to do was just kind of be there and do nothing and just take the credit, for how well the economy was doing. Unemployment was continuing to go down. The stock market was going up. And now he's causing this destruction where, I don't know, I was looking at the stock market yesterday, just kind of like the trend since he came in the office in January. And I mean, it's lost over 2,000 points. I mean, it was over 42. I think it was over 42,000 when he came into office. It's just barely around 40,000 now. And the volatility that he has created is just kind of, one day it's super down, one day it comes up a little bit. And then, he's causing inflation. It's self-inflicted inflation with these tariffs. And again, right, he paused it, but he didn't really pause it because he still put a 10% tariff on anybody. And he's infatuated with the trade deficits. And again, America is in a good place economically where we have money that we can go and spend on things that other countries are not able to do. Countries like Sri Lanka, Vietnam, and all these poor African nations are never ever going to buy as many American goods as we are able to buy from their countries. It is just not possible. They don't have, they don't have the economy. Their people are making, their people just don't make enough in order to do that. And he's just infatuated with ending these trade deficits, which, every economist says is just bonkers. So that's why I went to the rally, right? To kind of stand up against that. And then again, firing all the veterans, firing all the people that were doing there, and his misrepresentation of the federal workforce, that they're just a bunch of freeloaders who are there just to collect a paycheck and aren't really working. That is crazy. It's just nuts. It's nuts. And so That's why I went to the rally. That's why, I'll continue to speak out. That's why I will continue to stand up for these issues. We need to stop this, and we need to stop his destruction. And we need to make them realize, the Republicans in the House, the Senate, and the administration realize that they're on a wrong path. And we need more of their party to speak up. And some of their senators are out there trying to take our control of tariffs. Congress controls the tariffs. It's in the Constitution. But they gave it to him, this power, and we need to take that back.
I think that's a pretty perfect way of just stringing together the lack of logic to everything the Trump administration has done economically so far during the first 2-3 months, right? We trade with other countries, right? And I think the Trump administration thinks that if we give more money than we take in, then that's a loss. But we're still getting goods. We're still getting stuff, right? The goods, the stuff, whatever it is.
The thing is, it's not a loss. And I don't know whoever came up with this term trade deficit, right? We are not losing money. It goes to, the fact, it talks about the purchase power and the stability of the dollar and the value of the dollar, that we are able to go out and buy goods that are made all around the world. It is not a real deficit. We are not losing money because we spend more money on jewelry items, diamonds, and other stones that come from these poor African countries, then they're buying goods that are made in America.
Yeah, well, and it's if we buy iron or lithium or silicon, whatever it is from the country, and we use those materials to build cars and computers and for other high-skilled labor in this country, and then we sell those goods in this country or even to other countries, that means we are making a return on our investment in this country, right? We are creating high-skilled and high-paying jobs for Americans here. It's not the same as just, we lost the original capital we used to import this good, right? Mm-hmm. That's why we have the highest GDP in the world. It's why America is the wealthiest country in the world, because we bring things into this country that we build into better things. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't make sense. I don't think, we've seen the reception in the media so far to the trade war. I know we talked about this a little bit earlier, but even we got as most libertarian as you can get when it comes to global trade, and a guy of Rand Paul who's now been vocally against the tariffs, and he's not the only Republican. There's been plenty of people like that.
Right.
And it says a lot when you make the tariffs and see the markets plunge, and then you see, all this red on the stock market, and then later in the day you say, we're doing a 90-day pause actually, and the whole thing changes.
And then, the big bullshit about that, right, is if you watch Fox News after he did the pause, they were all like just talking about like, this was all part of the plan. It's the art of the deal. Trump knows exactly what he's doing. They're talking about like the administration saying like, we have all these countries that are ready to negotiate, ready to make a deal. But when you ask, who? They're not getting. They don't give the list. They don't say, right. It is, it's such bullshit that they are saying, and I hate the fact the guy is a liar. A flat out liar, and he is lying to the American people. He's lying to them about why they, how they're trying to spin this whole 90-day pause. They're lying about how he is going to bring all these jobs back in manufacturing to, back to the States, and kind of make it sound like, we're going to open a factory like in a couple months. We'll like have it built and we'll move the production back. And then the thing that it is, right? Look, I think I have valuable experience and knowledge, right? That just because of my life and what I've done. I've worked in a manufacturing plant. I've worked in a food manufacturing plant, where we made items and we packaged them. And right before I left, before I left that job, they they were shipping. They used to have packers who would pack the bags into boxes. All that's been automated now. All the lines, all the packers, all automated. And you were talking earlier about the efficiency of the American worker and things like how it's gone up. That's how it's gone up. It's because of the automation, and that's not necessarily creating more jobs in those sectors, right? This is why I think unions are important, right? And why they need to stand together and hold. The the longshoremen have really rallied to kind of prevent automation in their field, and they can offload a ship now without using anybody, doing it totally automated. But their union has been strong and stuck together and fought to ensure that they still supply jobs, to their union members at the docks. And that's what we kind of need more of, right? We need people sticking together to protect these jobs. But, if they bring these jobs back, it's not like Trump go and he'll talk about, I love the auto workers. He loves the fact that they're voting for him, but he's not going to go and return the favor by, supporting people who are going to go out and automatically create new factories and then ensure that they have union-made workers working in these factories. They're going to be automated. If they can put them in right-to-work states where, people don't have to join a union, that's what they're going to do.
Well, there's a lot in what you just said. I have a couple things. I want to get to the workers and technology and that whole dynamic and how it's affected the American workforce too. But I also did want to ask just in general about the original reactions to tariffs, because if you look at the S&P 500 on the granular level I think it was last Wednesday when we saw that the tariffs were getting the pause, you can see that the spike starts to happen just a little bit before when Trump announced the pause. So my question to you is, do you think our president of the United States is at a level that's so nefarious that he's doing market manipulation for his billionaire buddies?
I don't know if he's that smart to kind of come up with that idea on his own. Somebody might have told him, like, hey, just tell him we're going to do the pause. But I kind of think he was just saying, like, hey, the market's down. It's a good time to buy, right? Because it's not like it's uncommon or people don't do that, right, when the market goes down, because at some point it is going to go back up. That's just the way it works. But I don't necessarily know that he did it like to go and like, okay, he was making calls to all the billionaires out there. But I'm sure a lot of them saw it. And when it happened, they started buying. I'm sure all the day traders out there were buying, as soon as they saw the announcement, right? That it was that they stopped selling and started buying.
Yeah, well, the day traders, they're poor foot soldiers in the battle of these large entities. But the one thing I did see is there's a video of him in the Oval Office going up to people in his cabinet or billionaires, and he's kind of jokingly being like, "You made $2 billion today. You made X amount of money today. Look at how much money you made today. Aren't you happy?" It's like, is this really America?
Yeah.
Is this the dynamic that we have as a country, where our president of the United States is congratulating billionaires in the Oval Office?
He's very reactionary, right? I mean, that's the one thing that we know about him too, right? He's very reactionary, and I'm sure he saw afterwards how much, oh wow, look at how much so-and-so made, or look what so-and-so did. And then, of course, he wants to take the credit for everything, right? Everything good that happens to someone, Donald Trump wants to take the credit, and then anything negative or bad that happens, he always tries to push it off as somebody else's fault. So, of course, he's going to go and make the fact that, hey, because of what I did, you just made, $2 billion or $5 billion, because he wants them to know that happened because of me. That's how reactionary he is, and how narcissistic he is, right? That he wants the credit. He wants them to know that it was because of him that happened. And if they and the next day, probably when they lost another $1 billion or so because the market went back down another 1,000 points after it peaked like there, I'm sure he was, he wasn't calling them and saying sorry. Hey, sorry for the money a lot. I made you money yesterday, but sorry that I lost you money today.
I mean, I think that characterizes just about everything he did as president. He gets out of NAFTA because it's the worst deal in history, because it's the Bill Clinton thing, and then proceeds to renegotiate a trade agreement with Mexico and Canada that's pretty similar to what NAFTA used to be, actually. It's and for we talked about this in an earlier episode during his first term, wouldn't stop trying to repeal Obamacare because, and when in reality, a lot of Trump's voters actually benefited and been supportive of Obamacare. You go to talk to voters in those states, and that's the reaction you get. But Obama, the first black president who is the man that you could never be, did that. So it's bad, and it's bad for your ego that exists.
Well,
Come
it's
on.
like a lot of I think Kentucky is one of the best examples, right? It was Obamacare, but they called it something else, and so people were like
Yes.
anti-Obamacare. But hey, do you like the Kentucky health system, right? And they're like, oh yeah, it's great, not knowing that it's just Obamacare by another name, right? So, this is where we need to educate people, right? We need to educate people. We need to kind of shine the light on them, and people need to be willing to learn. And I think this administration just is trying to dumb down. It's unfortunate, right? I think when you look at non-educated voters, that's who or I should say non-college educated voters, that's his base. And he is trying to keep them that way, right? And it's unfortunate that he's working so hard to do that.
Yeah. Back to earlier, I did want to ask you, because you mentioned the role technology has played in undercutting the job market. I guess historically over the past few decades, we've seen that with automation in factories, in the automobile industry, and other more blue collar jobs in the past. But now we're kind of dealing with it as a second crisis, in the sense that AI is going to have an effect on the blue collar job market, but it's also this time around going to have a big effect on the white collar job market as well. And we're kind of just at the beginning of this era right now from a policy standpoint and a market standpoint. And I'm curious to you, in terms of blue collar jobs, but also in the market as a whole, how do you plan to approach policymakers and interests in the sense of AI and its role in the workforce going forward? And if you've thought about that at all.
Like I think I don't think AI is a bad thing, right? And
No.
I think a lot of people don't really understand what AI is. I don't think they know how it's done. And AI is only as good as the information we put into these systems. It is not like some kind of self-taught kind of learning thing, right? You have to put the information into it in order for it to kind of think and do that. And if you don't put the correct information, or you don't put enough of the information, it's going to come up with other it's going to basically come up with the wrong answer, right? It's going to develop other ideas. And I've heard about other things too, where it is, and this is where I think, people still have to play a role in this. AI should kind of be there to kind of help, provide information and to kind of develop things, but it should not replace people in the sense of now who's making the decision. I heard this story about a lawyer who, was a junior lawyer at a law firm who was given a task, and it's like, hey, I need you to kind of go and, research these things, find me cases that are relevant to these points that we're trying to make. And they used AI to do it. And then the AI just kind of basically made up cases in order to kind of make the point. So you still need somebody in there to kind of write, to kind of look at and to quality control the work that's coming in order to do that. The thing with there, I think AI is going to be no different than the automation was, right? As it kind of comes in, it is, it's not that there's not jobs out there, but you know, there are new jobs and new industries and new areas that we have to train people in order to do. Um, like I've said this a thousand times too, right? My grandfather was 16 years old, left high school, went to the factory across the street and got a job. I knew a lot of people like that were, that were able to do that. A lot of people who were able to go and have, make a good living and support their families by doing that. That is not the case today. We have to train people in order to do these jobs, right? We have to train people to work with this machinery, to work with the automation, to be able to repair it in order to to run it. Those are the jobs that are out there today. And it's going to be the same thing with AI, right? We have to have people that can input the data, input the information, and then people to quality, to quality control the work to make sure that it's right and correct. Because AI is only as good as, again, as the information that you put into it.
Sure. And you're absolutely right about that. But I also would argue that both in the sense of maybe lower level white collar producing jobs, but also AI is not just a large language model on a computer in the broad scheme of things, right? It's robots that can build cars, that can help people bag groceries, that can cook food, right? It can mean a lot of things going forward. And I think
I don't think I'm ready to go to a restaurant where there's no chef and it's a machine cooking my thing. And I actually read an article today, right, or actually it was the other day, about our people are going into the accounting, industry, to become accountants. Because there's a shortage there in that industry, right? You're still going to need people to do people's taxes, and there may be an AI tool that can help you with the process. It's still an individual that has to do the work and kind of put it out there and to ensure that, it's that quality control is in there and that it's being done right in order to help those individuals. The same thing with the nursing. We're losing thousands upon thousands every month in the nursing industry. We need that's a problem where it's going to cause a big medical crisis. And then doctors aren't that far behind. There are not many people going into the medical field to become doctors as there were in the past. There's definitely going to be doctor shortages. There are going to be nursing shortages. And, as much as we can say AI helps, I don't mind the doctor using AI to help me make that diagnosis, but I don't want to go see a machine that's going to diagnose me. And it's the same thing with like all the automation that's out there, right? I was talking to one of the airline pilots unions out there. The plane can fly itself now. You dial it in and you're doing there, it'll do everything. It can fly and get you where you need to go. It can land. But I still want a pilot, in the seat, actually two pilots in the seat to go and to ensure to be there in case anything happens. What if that AI machine goes down? What if the plane loses power? I want somebody in the seat there in the cockpit that's able to fly the plane. We still need people in order to do these things, even though there's technology out there that can do the job. And we need people for safety reasons as well that are trained and know how to do this, not only work the machinery, but know how to do the basics of whether it's flying or doing your taxes.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you that we still need people to do a lot of these jobs, and AI is not to the point where we can just let it be unsupervised in terms of taking over the American workforce. Absolutely not. But I also wouldn't underestimate the ability and incentive of different businesses around the country to say, okay, we can do this task and this task and this task with AI and, let a few people go and have it be supervised by one person or whatever. And that's what we're going to see maybe sooner than, saying, okay, yeah, there's a chef cooking your filet mignon, but it's a robot tonight, right? I mean, and even still, though, you go around LA, they got Waymo now. giving you robotic, non-driverless car rides. I don't think any of us could have foreseen that
Yeah,
5 years
I
ago,
don't know if
right?
I'm ready for that one either, right? I still, again, want somebody in the seats in case something happens,
Sure.
you know?
But my point is that I think whether or not we know how fast the dynamics are going to change the job market, there is still a trend. And I think President Biden did a great job under his term, being the first Democratic president in a few decades, really. I think he was the best since Lyndon Johnson, who was much friendlier to unions and much more supportive of what unions were doing in this country. Um, his appointments at the NLRB were beyond what I had seen in years from the Democratic Party in terms of their support. And I think it's important that as we go forward over the next few decades to continue to empower unions, especially in blue collar work, but also around the sector, whether that's nurses or chefs or pilots or wherever they are, to ensure that when the job market does face changes, if I think when, that American workers are protected. Because I for one don't want to be participating in an economy that is just robots.
Yeah. No, I look, I don't either. I don't either, but I think you look, technology is going to happen. It's always happened.
Sure.
You know, again, this is why I say it's so important for education, right? And training. The job market's going to change, and we need to ensure that the American people are able to change with it. And that's, you know, and this is why I think education is so important. And this is where, you know, not to go back down into the Department of Education, but that is a role I think the Department of Education could play around the country, is like, how do we train the workforce for tomorrow? You know, to ensure that they are ready to do the jobs for tomorrow. And we cannot just kind of, you know, you just can't assume that that's going to happen, right? That, well, I shouldn't say you just can't assume that a job you used to do, like, you know, 10, 15, 20 years ago is going to be the same, you know, today. You know, technology changes, things are changing. I mean, I cocked my windshield in my 1994 Ford Ranger. You know, I think it cost me $80 to get it replaced, right? Because there was nothing in the windshield. You know, now it's like super expensive to do that, because all the little electronic things and sensors that are in your windshield today that need to be connected and reprogrammed and kind of connected to the car when you you know, do that windshield. And it's raised the price and made it a lot more expensive and a lot more complicated. And so it's not just somebody putting a piece of glass, you know, taking a piece of glass out and putting a piece of glass in, right? The people that do that work have had to kind of evolve. And so we have to have, I think, as part of government, we have to help the American workforce evolve into the future. And the thing that it pisses me off at what Trump is doing is that he's just saying, we're going to go back and give you your old job back. You know, like how it used to be. We're going to have the old factory that was there when your grandfather worked there, and it's going to be the same. And, you know, and it's not. It is not. And so we as a government need to help the American people evolve with the changing workforce.
Yeah, and I'll say this now. I don't think. How can you think that someone who is aligning themselves with Elon Musk, a man who is trying to take over the federal government with AI and fire everyone so he can do that, how could you think that someone who is aligning himself with those kind of people is in favor of reopening automobile factories in Michigan, right? It's not going to happen. Things aren't going back to the way they were. And you're right. But about the Department of Education, we need not just, let alone what's happening right now with Trump trying to slash the Department of Education, but an actual direction on where Americans should be going in studies and contributing to our economy, right? We don't have that. We could barely dream of getting a lot of people to even afford a state college degree at this rate. It's not reality for some Americans. So,
And I don't think everybody needs to go to college, right? And a lot of these jobs, I don't think you need to go to college to do. I think, and this is again, it's part of the where I think government needs to take a role, is that we need to ensure that there's training areas where people can go and get the training how to do these jobs.
you're right.
It's not. And look, I've heard it from many CEOs, right? Is I don't need more MBAs. I need welders. I need guys that know how to weld. And that is a trade. That is somebody who, over time develops a trade, develops an expertise, and they get paid very well for learning how to do that. But we need to kind of help, like, again, as the job market's changing, as industry is changing, government should be there to help people evolve into these new career fields and new job markets so that they can be productive.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree with that. I think there's two sides of it, right? On the one hand, a college education should not be imposed and just held up as like the end all be all of path towards success in the American economy as it has been
Right.
for the past few decades. I don't think especially young men, but women too, should be told when you're in high school that you need to go to college. It's how you're going to make a living to survive. That being said, it's pretty clear over time that education and a college degree is the singular best indicator of being able to go and have a career and make more than what your parents made and continue upward mobility in the American economy. And at the end of the day, that's what this is all really about, right? The American economy, the American dream, this country that we care about, right? And I know you care about education, and I know that's an issue that's very important to you. And I'm sure that obviously you would agree with me that expanding access to higher education is something that is important and probably a pipe dream during this administration. But it saddens me.
Well, no, look, I don't feel that everybody needs to go to college, but I think if the opportunity is there, the opportunity for everybody to go should be there.
Right.
If that's what they choose and what they want to do. And again, I think a lot of it, cost is a big thing that kind of people see. And again, that should be something that the government should, Pell Grants are a good thing, and they should be more, because I'm pretty sure if there was a new report, and there might be one out there now, but I remember reading back in 2018 a report that, for every dollar we spent on higher education, we made $3. So that's like 300%, right? It's $300 into the economy 300% that got added to the economy for every dollar that's spent. So how is that not a good investment? It is something that we should be investing in. It should be something that we are encouraging people to do. Everybody should have that opportunity to do that if that's what they want to do.
Absolutely. Well, I think we're in agreement there, and it sucks that things are the way they are with the Department of Education. And, I hope that's something that...
Did you hear our former shareholder of the WWE? And look, I loved wrestling when I was a kid growing up. I watched WWF. I was a big Hulkamaniac, and I kind of broke my heart when I saw him up there. I'm like, okay, what did the Hulkster's motto used to be, right? It was train, say your prayers, eat your vitamins. And Donald Trump ain't doing any of those things. So I'm like, how the hell did you get behind this guy, right? Everything you stood for that you told kids to do, right? This guy is not doing them. But McMahon, who is now our Secretary of Department of Education, is trying to talk about AI, and she doesn't even understand it, the very basics of it, as she doesn't even know what it's called. She was calling it A1. She kept calling it A1, and then look it up there. Damian, if you're there, if you could pull it up on the screen. But A1 Steak Sauce actually came out with a statement, kind of like saying, yes, A1 is the way to go. We need to encourage like people to get into A1, earlier. But she kept calling it A1. Now this is our Secretary of Education.
Yeah, I was gonna say you would think someone who's leading America's education would remember. Oh yeah, here we got it on the screen here. Linda McMahon confuses A1. That's just one of those stories about the Trump administration that keeps writing itself.
Oh, yeah.
We talk about Department of Government Efficiency and cutting all the slack. Well, got all this slack adding journalists to private group chats, and yeah, there we go. There's the A1 ad there.
Yeah.
And not knowing what AI is. Oh God.
Yeah.
Every school should have access to A1.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get your A1, and it's your favorite new large language model.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? Props to A1.
I did. I saw this too, but I actually first saw it on John Oliver first. He was talking about it last night.
Oh, he's amazing.
I
Yeah.
had to go look it up. But it's just ridiculous that this is who our Secretary of Education is, and she doesn't even know what the hell it's called, or probably doesn't even have any idea what it is or what it can do.
Yeah. Speaking of administrative blunders by the Trump administration, we talked a little bit on an earlier episode about how there's a man from Maryland who is deported because of a clerical error and is in an El Salvadorian prison. I forget if it's the Supreme Court or just a federal court. I want to say it was the Supreme Court, though.
Oh, the Supreme Court 9-0 said
Yes.
we need to bring him back.
Ruled that is unconstitutional. He needs to be brought back. The Trump administration is saying no, that this is now foreign policy and that only the president has authority over foreign policy and that the court can't actually do anything here and that he's going to stay deported.
I mean, every day it's a different reason, right, as to why they're doing that. And I mean, I think the day before that they were talking about like, well, he's no longer under our jurisdiction because he's in an El Salvadorian prison and doesn't have anything to do with us anymore. Look, I'm pretty sure if and I don't even really kind of understand this, right? Is about how the hell did we set up a deal where we, are sending people to a prison in a foreign country, and not just a prison that has a horrible history and record of abuse to its inmates. I mean, there's no windows at the prison, they say, and they're like the cells are like huge that they all live in there. And look, I believe criminals need to do their time. They need to pay for what they did. I will never go against that, right? But people are due their due process, and that's what our country is kind of based on. That's what the Constitution is based on. A lot of it a lot of the Bill of Rights talks about that. And the fact that they have this individual who they are refusing to come back, the only reason that I can come up with as to why they're not doing that is just flat out racism.
Yeah. It's racism, it's control, it's an unwavering commitment to an agenda, even when you're wrong. That's what really gets me.
Time for a quick message from our sponsors.
This episode of Who Dem is brought to you by Elect Dems Now. We all know that podcasts are the future. They give us the chance to connect with our elected officials like never before. That's why Elect Dems Now is committed to helping voters engage with the people who represent us. Supporting organizations that bring us closer to our representatives is crucial to advancing and advocating for the change we want to see. Whether it's $5 or $50, every donation to Elect Dems Now helps shape our future and ensures a country we can all be proud of. Your support sends a clear message to candidates and elected officials. Connecting with you means connecting with America. To contribute and make a difference, visit electdemsnow.org today. Your donation helps build a world where we are all connected. Paid for by Elect Dems Now, electdemsnow.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Actually, you talked about the prison. If we could get an image of this El Salvadorian prison pulled up here on the stream, I want to look at it because you're right. This is a pretty notorious prison in terms of how it's treated inmates and just the story itself, right? I think you have a man who is a father. Yeah, there you go. That is horrendous. You have a man who's a father is living in Maryland and is wrongfully deported. The evidence that has come out of the Trump administration is that a lot of this has the evidence that's come out from the Trump administration is that a lot of the reasons for these deportations have been purely non-database, indiscriminate, and just stupid. They're using, if someone has tattoos, to affiliate them with a member of gangs and illegal activities as evidence for deportation. That's not even the same universe as the Bill of Rights and the Constitution.
I mean, who doesn't have tattoos today, right? And kind of that's your reason for them kind of being, while they have a tattoo, they're associated with a gang, but it's like tattoo and they're Latino and it's like, oh yeah, they're a bad guy.
Yeah. Hey, Representative, I wanted to jump in here too, because this is a story that for me, I think is super personal. When I was a kid, I actually saw my father get arrested. I saw him get arrested while he was trying to get a background check so that he could continue with his legal proceedings. He was trying to become a permanent resident here in the United States. And in front of me, I saw 4 police officers. This isn't something that I talk about a lot. I saw 4 police officers arrest him. I was probably like 5 or 6 years old. Tackle him to the ground. It was raining. They kicked me and my mom out of the county courthouse. They took my dad away. We were standing in the rain, and I remember, my mom advocating for my dad. I remember watching this woman see the love of her life get taken away from her. I remember her panicking on the phone, calling Charles Cuck, an amazing immigration attorney for anyone that's having problems out there in Atlanta. Charles Cuck, we've had him on the show before. I actually got the opportunity to work with him for a period of time. She called him frantically. I saw them come for my dad with chains and shackles, like an animal. And mind you, when he went to go get his criminal background check, there was no criminal background. He had nothing against him. And this was years ago. I just, the reason that I had to chime in here is because, this isn't just a prison. This is a death camp. And these aren't just immigrants. These are people. These are fathers. These are husbands. These are sons. This is authoritarian bullshit, to say the least. This is Nazi level, Mussolini level, taking people off the streets, throwing them in a car, and sending them to a death camp. It tears my heart, and it genuinely just terrifies me. Didn't want to jump in here and interrupt the episode or anything, but I just felt like, we were talking about why people are coming out to these protests, these Fight the Oligarchy protests and everything earlier. And, that's one of those things, right? There's so many, we've talked about it time and time again. There's so many different issues that are motivating people to come out. And this one for me is just one of those. I mean, I cannot imagine the pain being 8 months pregnant and watching the love of your life, also becoming aware of it because you saw a piece of propaganda that the White House published. No one had that. They didn't have the dignity to come and tell you that your husband was being deported and taken away. You had to figure it out from Nazi propaganda material that the White House proudly posted. It's beyond dystopian to me.
Yeah, look, who are the people they're going after, right? It's the Latino community. And I feel like it's always kind of been that way. The only foreign language the Border Patrol people have ever been required to know, right, is Spanish. And I used to take the train. I remember this when I was in the Navy, I was a young enlisted guy. I would take the train sometimes, or the bus to come up from San Diego up to LA. I remember them taking somebody off, a train, Latino man, because I'm going to assume because he didn't have any documentation or anything to kind of show that he needed to be there legal or whatever, right? But I remember another time they also talked to a woman who wasn't Latino, was Asian. They let her go. It's like, okay. They're like, just make sure you carry your, carry your green card or do whatever, you're supposed to do. And they let her go. And she had no documentation. And look, it's right now, it's to the extreme of that right now as to what they're doing. They are going after Latinos, and it's pure racist, right? And I think everything that they're doing too, even at every level, that the fact that they're taking books out of libraries and using these logarithms that somehow are like, well, we're taking out all the DEI books. But, I was on the interview I did with CNN a couple of weeks ago, right? And they said in the story right there that they removed a book about, a biography on Jack Johnson, the first black heavyweight champion here from the United States. It's the man's life story. What does it have to do anything with like DEI? So you're removing this book because he's a black man, and maybe it's because he dated white women when it wasn't, it wasn't, I guess, kosher. It wasn't kosher to do that back during that time in the early 20th century. Right. So we're going to take his book, out of the library. To do things like that, to go after these individuals because of the color of their skin, mainly to associate them with somehow being violent criminals because they have a tattoo, and denying them due process is just flat out racist.
And the last thing that I want to say here, I'll let you and Max continue on your conversation, is
please
the reason that they're doing it, the reason that they're taking these books out is because they want to erase our history. The reason that they're trying to now suppress a woman's right to vote with the recent act that was passed in Congress, the reason that they're taking out these DEI books is that they don't want, people like me and you, people that agree that this is something that is terrible and totalitarian and harmful and anti-American and detrimental to the health of our society. They don't want us telling the stories of people like my father, who came out of that prison, came out of jail with a mark on his forehead because he was banging his head on the bar thinking about how he's going to be able to provide for me and my mom from Mexico, thinking how he was going to be able to attend my graduation. They don't want us to tell these stories because they know that together, through telling these stories, through advocating for each other, through disposing of this terrible propaganda, whether it's tattoos or, the fact that someone has a speeding ticket, there is a level of dignity that as Americans, we should carry ourselves with and treat others with as well. And so to me, I think that, the reason that it kind of did bother me a little bit is because I've even seen like CNN and MSNBC talking about this thing, and they keep referring to CCOT as a prison. There have been pictures that have come out of CCOT of bodies being buried on top of each other next to piles of blood. I mean, this is like a death camp. I think that a prison is being generous to it.
Yeah. The other side of this too, right, that we don't talk about, doesn't get talked about, is really the exploitation of these people come, the undocumented people come to the United States here, right, because they know they can find work, and they know that it's usually it's not always going to be in the best conditions. It's not always going to be for full wages. They're being exploited, for their labor. And people are glad to kind of let them kind of come in. But yet at the same time, now we want to be like, oh, we got to stop this. And they're glad to use their labor. But, at the same time, it's like, oh, you broke the law to come in here. Well, they broke the law because people want them to come in here. People want to use their cheap labor. People want them to come in here and do the work that, like, frankly, the American people don't want to do.
Yeah, and on that note, there's a lot of people here that did. The vast majority came in legally, and like you're saying, my dad, not only was he someone that worked here in the United States, he's a small business owner that employs people that depend on him. to paint their houses, to do remodeling, to do these are services that the American people ask for, and he's providing jobs for people. And like I said, he came in legally. He came in, in the 80s with a border crossing card. And now everything's digital, so they would lose a lot of the information that they had on people that have been in here for decades, because they transferred everything to these digital servers. And so, yeah, like you're saying, it's these are working class people. A lot of these people are business owners. They're people that come here not to do harm, but to do better and to improve not only their lives, but the lives of the people around them that they come into contact with once they're inside of the United States.
No, I think, that, to quote Lin-Manuel Miranda in Hamilton, right? Immigrants get the job done. And look, a guy that does some work for us, he's an immigrant. And I don't know if he's undocumented or not. I'm going to assume maybe he isn't because he has all his licenses and everything. But, he worked for a company that wasn't paying him, that kind of went bankrupt. He took the initiative to say, okay, you know what? Give me the equipment. Give me the truck. And I will go out on my own. And where these other guys ran the business into the ground and went bankrupt, he's been successful and he's thrived. That's what immigrants do. And that's how, it's unfortunate. People don't hear more stories like that and how productive they are. And the same thing with your father, right? The success stories that they've been able to do and to have, to employ people. We need to tell more stories like that.
Representative, I mean, I think you're one of these stories that needs to be told. You're successful, but not only have you used your success, again, to bolster the lives of those around you, you have impacted lives, including mine, as a consequence of your philanthropic efforts, as a consequence of your good heart and charity. And, it's very easy to overlook the fact that, your last name is Cisneros, but there's something to carry with that. There's a story to be told with that. You do a great job with the Cisneros Institute here at GW. You also have one in the University of Southern California, if I'm not mistaken.
We don't have an institute there, but we do have scholarships that we provided to Latino students out there, right, at USC as well.
And that, I mean, I think you can kind of speak more on that. I'm sure that there have been either students or the parents of, I'm sure, let me tell you, if my mom could talk to you right now, she would spend 30 minutes just thanking you for things that you do like this, not just for me, but for brothers and sisters that look like me. What are some of these stories that you've heard about the impact that, you've had?
Jackie Robinson has this great quote, right? And if you ever go to Citibank Stadium, it's up there. They have like a little kind of Jackie Robinson Plaza, because even though he was a Dodger, he played for the Brooklyn Dodgers. So they kind of did that little thing there for him there in New York. But a life is not important except on the impact it has on other lives. And that's really kind of how I tried to live my life, right? Is really what kind of impact can I have on other people's lives? And the work that we've been able to do through scholarships and foundations, I think, has had a tremendous impact on a number of people, right? Whether it was, like I said, through one of our scholarships or our college access programs that we had, being able to mentor people, that to me is the most rewarding thing that I've ever done in my life. And I will continue to do that forever, right? Because it does have an impact. And I think it's horrible right now, again, what this administration is doing with their going after diversity, equality and integration, right? Or the DEI. The fact that, did I say that right? DEI,
diversity, equity, and inclusion. Yeah. But diversity, equality, and immigration are also all things that they're going after. So.
Yeah,
There you go.
but the fact that they are going after diversity, equity, and inclusion, and really threatening all these things because they want to give and calling it racist, right? That somehow some reversed racism, because we want to give an opportunity to an individual who might come from an underserved community who doesn't know any better, who doesn't, have any parents who that they can rely on, or know anybody that they can rely on to help provide them with the knowledge of how to navigate the college entry system. I mean, some of these things have been kind of just like minor, right? Well, you don't think, but I remember when we have the Caminos program there at GW. I don't know, did you do the Caminos program?
No, I didn't. I think it was. I think
Yeah.
it shut down because of COVID for a few years, and then you
Yeah.
guys started it back up.
So the Caminos program was a program we had for high school students to kind of give them an opportunity, and they were all Latino, right? From like underserved communities. Um, but and some of them were the first in their family that were going to go to college, right? And some of them didn't really know how to do it, right? I remember we had a kid that was just, he thought the best thing that he could do was well, say a state college in his state, and I won't say which one it was. But we're like, no, we think you can do more. We think you can do, we think there's more opportunity out for you, right? And there was nothing we did special for him. There was no any kind of things or strings that we pulled to do this or that. We just encourage him to dream bigger. And he ended up getting into an Ivy League school, one of the best schools in the country. And that's happened numerous times, right? There's another woman that we kind of was one of our first scholarships of students back in Pico Rivera. Who's now a rocket scientist. And everything that she achieved is through her own merit, right? But we kind of just gave her an opportunity, gave her some money to help pay for her tuition, and some encouragements, right? When she was looking for opportunities, internships. Of course, she wanted the Boeing and the Lockheed Martins and those ones, but she never actually got one of those. But we helped her get put in places where she, could go back to her community and had a place to do an internship. But when it came time for, for her to find a job, right? Boeing loved her persistence and the fact that she stayed in contact with them and that she kept working with them and that they ended up hiring her. And then she went on to USC and she went to Notre Dame and then went to USC to get a master's degree in building rockets. and she's an actual rocket scientist right now, putting things together. And it was all on her own merit. People like that, like the work that she's done and everything, she's an inspiration to the community. And really, that's kind of all that we're trying to do, right? Is just inspire young people who don't know any better, who want to do more, and help provide them with an opportunity where, you get the opportunity to go. But then after that, right, everything is based on you. Everything's based on merit and how well you do. Nobody's gonna, unless you're Pete Hegseth, nobody's gonna put you in a position of authority or responsibility unless you have proven that you can do the job and the work. And that's all we're trying to do. And the fact that they want to stop that, pisses me off more than anything that they are doing.
100%. And getting back to your question, Katz, I think that a part of it too is that it's kind of it's difficult. We need these stories like Representative is saying here, of someone going back to their community and being an inspiration. Because as you're saying, in the climate right now, if you're a person that looks like me or has a Hispanic last name or speaks Spanish, it's almost like right now you're scared to demonstrate your heritage, and you're told that you can only achieve this, and that, and anything else that you do achieve is a consequence of, like the representative is saying, DEI or this, that, and the other, when that couldn't be further from the truth. So talk about trickle-down economics. What actually trickles down are the things like what the representative is doing. That trickles down to people. Fortunately, again, I don't want to toot my own horn here, but now I have the opportunity to come to GW because of Representative Cisneros, and it really is because of Representative Cisneros that I had this opportunity. And now I, get the chance to have a program where I'm teaching students how to engage in new media. And that trickles down, and that hopefully those students will be able to use the skills that they gain and create more jobs. and hire some more people.
And Damon, what does the Institute do, right? It makes sure that you're on track, that you're doing your work, that you're getting what you need to do to make sure that you're going to be able to graduate, and not only graduate, but graduate on time. And then provides you with, a community of like-minded individuals who have a similar background to you, where you can all kind of, um, support each other.
Yeah.
Why is that so bad? Why is that so bad? And they want to stop programs like that. They want to deny funding to institutions that are supporting programs like that. And that's the problem with what this administration is doing.
I think we just need to start saying that it's racism a lot more than we do. I think as liberals and leftists, we often think we need to find the prettiest words and the most articulate and intelligent responses to respond to the stupid things Republicans do. No, it's just racism. They don't like going into communities and making sure that the people with talent and skills and identity that deserve to rise up and contribute to, our community in a unique way don't, because it's racist. So let's make that very clear going forward. I don't want to, jump in here too much. Obviously, I know this is something that both of you two have been connected with a lot in terms of both your stories, but in terms of our conversation as a show and how we should address these things as Democrats, as people who believe in progressive politics, I think that's important to consider going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, me and you could say, I don't want to speak for Representative Cisneros here, but, I've had the experience of racism firsthand. But the thing is, it's not just racism with this administration. It's racism, it's sexism, it's homophobia, it's xenophobia, it's blatant discrimination. And you're right. We need to call it as it is. If it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, my guess is it's a duck, And you're right. The second thing that comes to mind as you're mentioning it is, if you go to the Holocaust Museum here in DC, the last sign, and I'm going to paraphrase it here, but the last sign that you see before you leave the Holocaust Museum is, first they came for the unionized workers, and I didn't stand up for anybody because I wasn't unionized. Then they came, for the homosexuals, and I didn't stand up for anyone because I wasn't gay. Then they came for Jews. And when I looked around, there was no one else left to stand up for me. And so although me and you might have a different shared experience, standing up for each other is fundamentally American. Standing up for each other is the values that the Democratic Party has. And I'm proud to see Democrats taking steps to show Americans that while one side is all about dividing, we're all about uniting. So yeah, I appreciate you guys letting me hop on here and chime in and give my 2 cents, because it is an issue that's important to me. And, to anyone listening, do it as well. There's going to be rallies near you. There's going to be protests. If you've never been to one, go out, take your family, because this is an issue that even if it's not directly affecting you now, very soon it could. Yeah.
Look, it is go like you said, Damian, right? People have got to go to the rallies. They get out there. They got to protest. They got to let their voices heard. I'm going to keep saying this, right? It's got to start with the people. It's got to start with the American people. This is where it is. I know people were looking to Congress and their members of Congress, like, hey, what are you doing? Why aren't you doing more? It's in there. Congress is very reactionary. It is reactionary. It has got to start with the people. And I'm part of the people. I was out there, this past Saturday out there with the people, doing it. We'll do it more, but it has got to start with the American people. They're the ones who have got to get out there in the streets. They're the ones who have got to do it. The war in Vietnam didn't end because Congress decided it was time for it to end, right? It ended because the American people got together and rallied and kind of protested against what was going on. And that's what kind of led it down the path to eventually where it ended.
And also on that note, in terms of your role, right? You're not there. You're there as a member of Congress, yes, but I think the way I see it, when I see you post on social media that you were there, I see it as, okay, you're a person, you're a citizen of the United States who's upset with what's going on, and you're there to remind anyone else who's sitting on the sidelines and is upset but isn't quite sure or quite motivated enough to get involved that you can, and you're first and foremost a U.S. citizen who's upset with things happening right now. And I think that, whether or not it's public or whatever, that you had a late invitation to go or whatever, to me it makes it very clear that you care and you're there as a U.S. citizen who's upset with what the Trump administration has done. And that's the message you send to your constituents and the rest of Americans when you do that.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And again, the people have got to get out there. We got to rally together. We got to make our voices heard. We need to do it, right? And kind of, going back to your point, Damian, where you were saying that sign you see, when you leave the Holocaust Museum, civil rights movement, right? Again, Congress was reactionary, right? It started with a bus boycott in Alabama. Martin Luther King rallying the people, and then it was supported by unions. It was supported by religious leaders. It was supported by, people, white and black, brown, all across the country coming together to push forth that movement. And then again, Congress got reactionary and created civil rights legislation. But it starts with the people. We need the people to keep up this momentum for the next two years, the next 4 years, and beyond, to ensure that we protect our country, and the American way, right? Truth, justice, and the American way, just like Superman used to say. That's what we need.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think we've talked about a lot of important things today. Anything else from either of you two?
No, I'm good now. I'm good. But hey, again, I appreciate your time. Both of you guys. Thanks for coming on, Damian. Always great talking with you, Max.
Absolutely.
Hopefully we need more people to come out to the show or kind of there and start listening. So get out there. People, tell your friends about it if you're listening now. And, glad to have you out there if you are listening.
Yeah, and I want to say thank you guys so much. I didn't mean to hijack the episode here, but it does feel like I got a lot off my chest. And I think, for any other Americans, just like what Representative Cisneros is saying here, go out there, make your voices heard. Right now, it can feel like there might not be, that much hope, or you might feel like we're in a dark time. But, if you view each one of us as a shining light, when we get together, we're one big ass bright light. And that's something that Donald Trump can't ignore. That's something that Elon Musk can't ignore. That's something that corporate interests and billionaires, if you want to put it down that way, can't ignore. So staying out, staying united, watch out for each other. These are crazy times. But thank you guys both. Always having wonderful conversations. It's really a privilege to listen to you guys discuss these issues in such detail. It's always a wonderful time.